Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Deandra, and I am part of the library's programming and venue services team, along with my colleague, Tony Allison. Today, it is my great pleasure to co-host Tony's fabulous, much-needed program, Staying Sane During COVID-19. In today's program, we are going to take a look at some of the mental health aspects of this pandemic. We'll explore some strategies with the help of a special guest, an expert in this field. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Tony Allison, Performing Arts Center Coordinator at the Windmill Library, to begin the program. Tony?
Thank you so much, Deandra, and thank you for your help in organizing this event. Welcome everybody to Windmill Library. Welcome virtually. We hope very soon to be able to welcome you back to this very building, and perhaps a little later on in the year to this auditorium where I'm sitting. We miss you here. Before we begin the event, on behalf of all of us at the Library District, I would just like to extend our deepest sympathy to all the families of the victims of this awful pandemic. We can only imagine what you have been going through. Your loved ones are so precious. They are still with you in spirit, and we want you to know that we're with you in spirit through the rest of this pandemic. We wish you peace, and we hope today's conversation might help you in some small way find that peace. So thank you for that. Having said that, let's move on to something else. Deandra, would you like to talk about these numbers on the screen?
Yes, if you are in crisis or near your breaking point, please call one of the numbers you see on your screen right now. These agencies are there to assist you and are ready to help 24/7. Please note that these helpline numbers are listed in the description below this video. And now let's get started, Tony.
Okay, thanks, Deandra. Hopefully we'll be able to look at three main aspects of the stress and strain we're all dealing with us to keep us sane through the rest of this pandemic. And we'd like to look at these areas: work and finance, interpersonal relationships, and then the big one, anxiety and depression. At the end of the video, we'll have some more links to useful resources that we hope will be helpful to you. But now it gives me the greatest pleasure to welcome our very special guest for today's conversation. Nicholas Neubauer is Clinical Director of Neubauer Mental Health Services in Las Vegas. Nicholas has been a licensed clinical social worker in Nevada, dealing with behavioral and mental health care for 12 years. His clinical experience includes direct practice, individual, couple, family, and group therapies, assessment and evaluation, program development, instruction, and clinical supervision. Nicholas strives to reach client objectives through positive relationships with effective treatment planning and application. He holds a BA in psychology and a Master of Social Work from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Nicholas, welcome to Windmill Library virtually. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you and yours are doing well, good sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation, and thank you to you, Tony, and you, Deandra, for inviting and having me on today. And hello to everybody involved with the Library District. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Nicholas, would you like to tell us a little about yourself and your practice and maybe what made you want to get into counseling, that field?
Yeah, absolutely. So I myself am a lifelong Las Vegan. Been in Nevada my entire life. Went to high school out here, and ultimately went to both CSN and UNLV for my undergraduate and graduate degrees. As you stated, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the owner, operator, and clinical director of Neubauer Mental Health Services. So we are an outpatient behavioral health care provider. We serve all populations across the board. However, we're the largest provider for the Desert Regional Center population, which is the state agency that provides support services for children, adolescents, and adults with intellectual developmental disabilities. Outside of that, I have specializations in various practice areas, as well as our agency does a lot of work with various social service organizations, such as Department of Child and Family Services, Juvenile Justice Services, CPS. If there's an acronym out there in the Valley, we tend to work with those populations, as well as by virtue of being on all the insurance panels, we get quite a cross section of various populations. Just think, typical persons contacting their insurance carrier, letting them know that they're interested in receiving therapy and being referred over to us. So we do have a pretty broad practice with 27 clinicians with areas of specialty ranging across the board.
Thank you and all your colleagues for everything you do to help folks in our community each and every day. That's really awesome. So let's just jump into this. What have been some of the biggest challenges your patients have experienced during COVID-19?
Well, the primary challenge that I see people facing is basic self-care. And by virtue of that, talk about excessive eating. The COVID belly is a real thing. So the increase of being sedentary and along the lines of that eating is more so boredom eating more than anything else. People's schedules, their sleep-wake times are getting pretty well turned around, being that the absence of structure. Physical activity is decreasing. Socialization clearly has implications as it relates to COVID. No shortage of anxiety in regards to work and finances. Lots of folks dealing with anxiety in regards to potentially contracting the virus themselves or having a loved one fall ill. So concerns as it relates to that. Parents becoming teachers, and managing their children in the absence of school, not only as far as being able to watch and care for them, but also too having to lesson plan and teach the lessons themselves and make sure that they're staying on top of that transition from school-based services to web-based services. So that relationships, clearly relationships have been tried with people going through a difficult time. That clearly has implications for how they feel and what they're thinking and how they behave. And you get multiple people in trying situations, and that clearly can create stress to a relationship. So generally, I can't say that there's a one-size-fits-all as it relates to how people are receiving complications as it relates to the shutdown as it relates to COVID. But self-care is the one that I find to be the one that challenges most folks.
So Nicholas, thank you for that. And all of those things touch a chord and touch on what we wanted to speak about today. So how do we begin to help ourselves and then our family and friends and neighbors? What are good strategies for helping us stay sane through all of this?
All right, now staying sane at any point in time is always a challenge, right? I know I deal with that myself as well. So we're in good company, and that's one of the things that we want to be able to think about, because oftentimes during trying situations, there's this this internal mechanism that goes off in regards to why is this happening to me, and I have a luxury in that I get to process this with quite a bit of folks. But what happens is that when we're isolated, we're alone, it can very much feel as though that we're going through this alone. So it's being able to communicate with other people and being able to realize that we're very much engaged in a shared experience. And because what oftentimes can happen is, we start being hard on ourselves for some of the challenges that we are feeling and that we're facing. But the reality is that those challenges that we're facing very much are a realistic and shared consequence of conditions such as that we're facing. And as well as, how we can take care of ourselves and take care of others. Again, I liken that to the, you think about when you get on an airplane and the stewardess or the steward goes over the protocols in case of an emergency, cabin depressurizes, the masks fall down. They instruct you to put one on yourself before you support anyone else. So again, it leads us back to self-care. And what might be occurring at your neighbor's house or with a close friend or even somebody within your own house, how it's affecting them might be very different as to how it's affecting you. So the encouragement is to more so do an honest self-assessment and make a determination in regards to, out of the sum of the consequences that are implicit with the COVID shutdown, as well as all of the concerning things that you hear about on the news, appropriate safety protocols, and just trying to keep up with all the information that's out there, to not necessarily allow it to be anxiety causing to where that becomes a primary preoccupation, but to take into consideration, to what degree has my sleep schedule changed? Do I know what day it is? When's the last time that that I spoke with somebody, or what kind of things am I doing that are constructive to keep myself busy? So the reality of it is that it is a pretty broad spectrum as to how it relates to each person. And that is generally only kind of questions and discernment that we can do on our own in regards to developing an understanding of how it is it's affecting us. And if we do that, what that does is it can create a roadmap in regards to, okay, well, this is how it's affecting me. Here are the deficits that I'm running into, and this is how it's affecting me. Well, what can I then do to engage those deficits to try to offset them and create some kind of balance for myself?
Mm-hmm. It feels to me like the whole world is dealing with a form of PTSD. Does that sound like a fair description, or is that an exaggeration?
No, you know what? It definitely sounds like a fair description. One of the things that I like to think about as it relates to trauma is that trauma is respective to the individual. What I mean by that is that, yes, I would imagine across the board that people are faced with specific traumas as it relates to COVID. That's not to say that everybody that is a part of these times is suffering from trauma. I have found certain folks that tell me that they like it very much, and they're more so having anxiety when things get quote unquote back to normal. But yes, there are folks who have lost jobs, jobs that were very meaningful to them, that provided for themselves and their families, or just certain career aspirations and professionalism. I have had contact with, through teletherapy formats, persons who have had family members who have fallen ill to the virus itself. And that most certainly could generally create a traumatic experience for somebody, but also too, just simply, being cut off from your social circles or those kinds of things. So the possibility for trauma exists across the board over a pretty broad base, but once again, it does become very much respective to the individual. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things, and for any of these concerns in general, it's yes, that self-assessment is important, and if during that self-assessment, either for yourself, if you happen to be a caretaker or a parent or something like that, and you do have concerns for yourself or for another individual in which you might have a degree of stewardship over, it really is encouraged to take those things seriously, and to reach out to try to address them sooner than later.
Yeah. So that was going to be one of my next questions. What are the ways you have helped your clients deal with anxiety, and at what point should one reach out to a professional like your good self to deal with this? Because when do you realize that gosh, I need help with this? I'm going to need professional help getting through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we can all pretty much agree that that we are going to have a response to, let's say, the COVID shutdown. We're going to have a response to the anxiety that this virus exists and it has the capacity to spread with the speed and cover the volume in which it has. Um, so we want to be mindful that yes, we're going to have a reaction, we're going to have thoughts, we're going to have feelings as it relates to. However, if it gets to the point to where we become either preoccupied with any of those presenting concerns, whether it be that I feel as though that my mood is sliding down, and I've identified that for myself, and I've tried to enact, positive activities to keep myself engaged, or I've been, working on my inner self-talk to remind myself that, this is a serious but temporary situation, and these are the kind of things I have to do now, knowing that at some point, hopefully there's a resolution to this and we can get back to quote unquote normal. The concern would be is that if those things become sustainable, and then you find yourself having more and more challenges trying to offset and to find a balance to where the depressive cognitions or the depressive symptoms aren't present, or if I find myself consumed with anxiety, or what, my sleeplessness has now turned into very much a pattern of sustainable broken sleep, those kinds of things, to where we want to expect that there's going to be some kind of reaction, but then we find some degree of what could be quantified as a healthy baseline. But if we're not able to get back to that baseline and it becomes such a disturbance in our life that it's starting to be consequential to ourselves and potentially those people around us, we most certainly want to make sure that we get out there and we make some contact. And that contact can start with, talking to some of the trusted people in our lives, some of the people that we're close with, once again, to help normalize that we're having a shared experience, but also to be able to have that cathartic experience of being able to say, this is what my frustration is, or I'm having a really difficult time with that. And, to where we're not just locking these things away and trying to tell ourselves that we might be better, we might be dealing with this better than we actually are, but to actually take ownership of what it is that we're feeling and what we're thinking, and to some degree the implications that it might be having on how it is that we're acting. Now, if any of those things become sustainable or become, kind of, a dictating source of our lives, that's when we want to make sure that we reach out to, to somebody that's in a professional helping capacity. And look, it doesn't necessarily need to be when we do that, that becomes, that we view it as though that it's an illness, or that, oh, well, now because of COVID, I have to be in therapy, or these kinds of things. It's an objective person to be able to share your thoughts with, and to be able to get feedback to help us try to get back to that point of balance.
Thank you for saying that, because your family and friends are absolutely essential, but there's always going to be a limit, isn't there? Because there are some things that even your best friend won't tell you to use the.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that unfortunately continues to be a prevailing concern from my scope of practice is that unfortunately mental health and contacting a therapist or a counselor or professional clinician in our field is that there still does happen to be a stigma that exists as it relates to mental health. And I'm somewhat hopeful that one of the positive consequences that comes out of COVID is the continuation of the increase of dialogue about the normalization and the encouragement of mental health being taken as seriously as any other kind of health, whether it be dietary health, physical health, those kinds of things.
Thank you. On that note, Nicholas, I can't think of a better way to end our conversation this morning. Thank you. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to leave us with? Because you've shared a lot and that's been immensely helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, my final thoughts would be not that we have many alternatives to it, but clearly there's an encouragement uh, to be patient. Um, to be patient, not to, as things begin to control, open up in the capacity in which they are, um, to not embrace it so fully to the fact that you're being negligent as to the care of yourself and the care of the other people that you run into, that you might have contact with, to stay up to date on any kind of developments as it relates to ways that you can further protect yourself and further protect those persons around you, as well as patience in regards to those stressors that you identify that you are struggling with, um, to where you don't allow them to become more meaningful than what they are, and you start to turn inward on yourself as opposed to looking at it as a situational dynamic. So, being patient with ourselves, being patient with this entire pandemic, um, as as it continues to process, however it does, as well as exercising patience with those people around us, not necessarily just those in our own homes, but if we're talking to somebody on the phone, we're frustrated with our financial situation, and we're trying to work out something with a lender or something like that, or a landlord, or those kinds of things, to that patience, which is extraordinarily challenging for humanity to present itself across the board with, but to take that into consideration as we not only care for ourselves, but we care for other people.
Nicholas, thank you so much. Yes, there's a phrase we have around here that was cited by our executive director, an old saying: be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle. And boy, are we all fighting a hard battle right now with COVID. Nicholas, you have been a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for your patience with us. We really appreciate it. And the other kind of patience, thank you for all you do to help your patients, your clients, each and every day across the Las Vegas Valley. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work that you guys do on behalf of the community. We appreciate it.
Thank you. See you soon. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay sane.
Absolutely.
And we would just like to thank Nicholas Neubauer for joining us again and sharing his wisdom. Everybody, here are a few more resources that you might find we hope you will find helpful. To contact Neubauer Mental Health Services, the phone numbers on your screen, and their web address, of course, is nmhslv.com. You'll find a wealth of information at our website, lvccld.org, including a comprehensive list of community services, and of course, all the free online resources you can get with your library card. Among the list of comprehensive services you will find, there are three really helpful ones on this subject matter. The ADAA has a wealth of information about dealing with anxiety and depression. The CDC has a very, very helpful guide to coping with stress and anxiety, and psychology.org also has a coronavirus page. So please check those out. Again, we'll have these links in the notes below this video. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of our community. Please stay safe out there, stay Vegas strong, and above all, stay sane. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for putting together this fabulous life-saving video with Nicholas Neubauer, and to everyone for watching. I hope that you find this video informative and helpful. Please remember that the helpline numbers are in the description below this video, along with the contact information for Neubauer Medical Health Services. We will see you all again soon on our YouTube channel, virtually anywhere.